Good morning, Supervisor Lee.
Good morning, Rhonda.
Have a great meeting.
Thank you.
I have a second sign on for Enrique Serrano. Is this somebody from the Mhsa family?
Yeah, I'm here.
I have a second login with the same name.
Yes, that's me. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, I was just verifying it was from the right family, so thank you. Good morning, Supervisor Ellenberg, Vice President Ellenberg.
Good morning, Rhonda. How are you today?
Wonderful, and yourself?
Best day ever.
Awesome. Enjoy your meeting.
Good morning, everyone. This is the clerk with a courtesy announcement that this meeting is now being streamed live on the internet.
Good morning, Daryl.
Good morning.
We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you. Have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Good morning, Tina.
Good morning.
Have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Who do I see? I see our honoree, Daryl Ivora, CEO extraordinaire.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And good morning, President Wasserman and Supervisor Simidian.
Good morning. I think Mr. Ivora forgot to shave since I saw him last. That's a good look on you, Daryl.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
The product of COVID.
There you go. Good. Hey, a lot of bad and there's a lot of good. Let's get this whole thing behind us. $9:29.
We are still awaiting the arrival of Supervisor Chavez.
Yep.
Your clerk today is going to be Dave Leon.
Got it for Dave. And Vice President Ellenberg will be leading us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Do, 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 do. Funny, I remember my mom taking me to Macy's this time of year, and if you came with your mom, you got a little cup this big of 7-Up as a reward by Santa's helpers. So we'd always agree to go with mom to Macy's because we got a Ken Yeager approved size of 7-Up. That's what it would be. All right, I see 1, 2, 3.
Recording in
4.
progress.
I see 5, all 5 members. And with that, Mr. Leon, let's start this meeting if you'll take roll.
Good morning, Supervisor Lee,
Good morning, present.
Supervisor Chavez,
Here.
Supervisor Simidian,
Here.
Vice President Ellenberg,
Here.
and President Wasserman.
Here as well. Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. I'd like to ask Vice President Ellenberg to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and all those that are able to stand, please do so.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I just want to apologize for the first time in 11 years. I do not have my holiday red jacket on. It is somewhere in storage, Supervisor Chavez, and we're not quite sure where, but it's in a box somewhere, and I fully intend to have it on next year. But I thank you and our honoree, Mr. Ivora, for sporting the red for today. All right, with that, we're going to go to an invocation, and that is by Mr. Ivora. Please go right ahead. And this is brought to us by Vice President Ellenberg.
Yes, and I'm going to do an introduction first, if you don't mind, President Wasserman. It is my pleasure to welcome and introduce Daniel Ivora this morning. Well known to many of you, Daryl is the President and CEO of Uplift Family Services and the Chief Executive Officer for the Board of Directors at Uplift Family Services. Uplift Family Services provides vital service as one of the largest and most comprehensive behavioral health treatment providers in California. Their mission is to, quote, do whatever it takes to strengthen and advocate for children, families, adults, and communities to realize their hopes for behavioral health and well-being. This work began more than 150 years ago as an orphanage in Los Gatos for neglected and abandoned Chinese girls called Ming Kwong. And for those of you who want to read the fascinating history of the origins of Ming Kwong, later Eastfield Ming Kwong, then EMQ, and finally Uplift, I highly recommend reading Chopstick Childhood in a Town of Silver Spoons by Nona Mock Wyman. It really is a great read. Today, Uplift provides services to more than 35,000 children and their families annually throughout 12 counties in California. Daryl joined Uplift in 1999 and has served as CEO since 2009. He also currently serves on the board for the California Alliance of Child and Family Services. Though today's commendation, upcoming at agenda item 5, is offered by our entire Board of Supervisors in recognition of his tremendous work of more than 2 decades to community, I want to share 2 very quick connections I've had with Daryl and Uplift that have impacted me personally. First, I met Daryl when I was teaching social justice at Yavne. My 7th graders each had to choose a local organization that was meeting the needs of an issue about which they cared. And one of my students chose then called EMQ. Daryl spent time with my student answering her questions and explaining the wide range of EMQ's work. She was able to visit the Los Gatos site and speak with other staff members and even a family receiving services. That he took so much time to engage with a 12-year-old, not a client, for her school project and engage her on an adult respective level made a deep impression on me, and I know on my student. Second, as Daryl and some of the Uplift staff know, I once had reason to call emergency mobile crisis response team, and that call and engagement may well have saved my child's life, and for that, I am forever grateful. I am so glad to welcome Daryl this morning to offer an invocation that will set the tone of our work today. Daryl.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm almost speechless. Good morning, members of the Board of Supervisors, County Executive Smith, county staff, and everyone tuning into today's board meeting. I want to begin by thanking Supervisor Ellenberg for the honor of being asked to deliver today's invocation. As I hope you already know, when I leave for the holidays in a few short days, I'll be retiring as CEO of Uplift Family Services. And this past year has been a time of deep reflection of my almost 30 years at this agency that has served our local community for 154 years. Of the many wonderful people I've worked alongside throughout those many years, and of the thousands upon thousands of children and family members' lives we've touched in a thoughtful, clinically sound, and hopefully humble way. I could not be more grateful for nor prouder of the choice I made all those years ago to enter the field of behavioral health. I was so fortunate that the mission and values of Uplift aligned with my personal beliefs and desire to use my time and talents in a manner that would have eternal significance. And I have always believed there was a higher, much higher purpose to my entering this field, this agency, and this county to do my work. And I could not be more proud than I am today as I reflect back on our collaborative work, county and provider together, to advance the field of children's behavioral health and child welfare. I know in my heart that we have a shared vision and commitment, and I've had the unique privilege to carry across the state the many innovations piloted here in partnership with the county. So thank you. You know, we all know personally, and experts agree on the devastating impact the pandemic has had on our daily lives, and in particular on the mental well-being of all, children, youth, adults, and seniors alike. The CDC had reported that between 2009 and 19, there had been a 40% increase in persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness in 1 of every 3 high school students. And just last week, the Surgeon General noted that symptoms of depression and anxiety for everyone have doubled during the pandemic. The safety net services we collectively provide are more important than ever. And we, the community, owe you and your administration a debt of gratitude because you have repeatedly demonstrated your understanding of and commitment to meeting these needs. Thank you again. So my friends, I leave you with this parting message for the years ahead, as I am very certain some of those years will be even more challenging and require everyone to be increasingly thoughtful, strategic, and resourceful. So let us aspire to be the best we can and model collaborative collegiality with one another, to demonstrate our respect for one another, to continually support those in need, to empower and uplift all others, assuring that Black, Indigenous people of color have a voice in decision-making. And finally, through our collaborations and partnerships to work together for the common good and to ensure the efficacy and continuity of the safety net. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Daryl. And if you'll hang around in about 10 minutes, we're going to present a commendation to you. So you got to come up with some more stuff. All right. We're going to move on now to adjournments in memoriam. I'll kick it off with my announcement regarding law enforcement record supervisor Franchetta, known as Frankie Glasper, who passed away on November 21st. She began her career with the County of Santa Clara Sheriff's Office in May of 1985 as an employee in records. With hard work and dedication, she became the law enforcement record supervisor shortly thereafter. Franchetta was born on August 16, 1964. She worked for the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office for 36 years. For those close to her, she was known as Frankie. Frankie was known to be very sociable and friendly. She enjoyed spending time with her family and close friends. When not at work, she loved to shop and planned to travel the world once she retired. She is survived by her 4 daughters, Jasmine, Chelsea, Simone, and Monique. She had 4 grandkids, Zachary, Isaiah, Amaya, and Gabriella, with whom she loved spending time. On behalf of the County of Santa Clara, I extend to Franchetta's family, friends, and co-workers our sincere condolences. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to move on to Supervisor Chavez for her adjournment in memoriam.
Thank you. Today, I'm asking also that we adjourn in memory of Sotera Castillo Solis. I want to acknowledge and welcome Sotera's daughter, Aurora Solis, and her daughter-in-law, Nancy Solis, and their friends and family who are with us today. Some of them may not be able to join us, and I'll share that at the end, what happened for their family. Mrs. Sotero Castillo Solis was born April 22nd in 1920 in Dr. Cos, Nueva Leon. She was born into a family of educators, but was left partially blind after a traumatic childhood sickness. She worked in her uncle's maquiladora in Monterrey, Nuevo Leon during her teenage years. This is where she met her husband at the age of 18. They shortly married and began a family. Sotera migrated to the U.S. from Monterrey in 1969 and moved to San Jose. She remained a homemaker for the rest of her life while providing babysitting services for countless grandchildren and great-grandchildren throughout the years. She was a devoted parishioner at Most Holy Trinity for almost 40 years. She survived her survived her late husband after his passing in 2005. She survived breast cancer. She survived heart problems. She was, to the entire community, a symbol of perseverance, a constant beacon of light and hope for her whole family, and was an inspiration to many. Sotera passed on peacefully, surrounded by loved ones on November 30th, 2021. She leaves behind 6 grandchildren: Hilda, Salvador, Aurora, Manuel, Reynaldo, and Jose, along with 6 of her own children, along with 18 grandchildren and 25 great-grandchildren and 8 great-great-grandchildren. We're honoring her because of her leadership in Most Holy Trinity, her leadership with PAC, and her leadership in our community, and she will be greatly missed. Part of the reason her family isn't here, colleagues, is that they had the money that they saved to pay for her funeral was actually stolen from their home. And so they were dealing with that this morning, but I didn't want to miss an opportunity both to share that plight with the community, but also to just share our deep sorrow for the loss of Sotera. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Next is Supervisor Lee.
Thank you, President Wasserman. Today, I'm also speaking in memoriam for the adjournment of Kevin Nishida. Kevin Nishida began his law enforcement career in 1993 as a member of the Oakland Housing Authority Police Department and later serving as an officer in San Jose for almost 2 decades, then Coma and also Hayward. Collectively, he has served the community through law enforcement for over 28 successful years. After decades of protecting communities around the Bay Area, Kevin retired to spend more time with his family. He was proud to watch his children finish college and start their families, and especially his grandchildren. Most recently, on November 24th, Kevin was assigned to protect the KRON4 news crew and was shot by a robber who attempted to steal the camera of the news crew. He passed away 3 days later. Max Daryl, a reporter from KPIX, says, Kevin was joyous, fun-loving, hardworking, and had made a lot of difference in people's lives as a police officer, security guard, family man, and as a friend. Kevin's colleagues and friends will remember him as loyal, brave, dedicated to his family, his team, and someone you could always count to make you laugh. To his loved ones, he will always be the hardworking, compassionate family man he wanted to be. I believe Enrique Serrano, who is Kevin's stepson, is joining us today. Enrique, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Supervisor Lee. Yeah, I'm here with my mom as well. I'm not sure if she wants to say anything, but yeah, Kevin was a big part of our lives. We're gonna miss him so much, and we're just gonna try to carry on that giving, personality that he had, and just live through those manners. So thank you.
Thank you, Enrique.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Lee. With that, we move on to item 5A, which is to present a commendation to Daryl Ivora. As Vice President Ellenberg said, this is on behalf of, from the board. She will be doing the presenting.
Thank you very much. I will be much briefer and possibly less tearful in this one. It's my pleasure to introduce again Daryl Ivora, the President and CEO of Uplift Family Services. Daryl holds a master's in business administration and counseling psychology from the University of Santa Clara. As I noted earlier, he joined Uplift Family Services in 1994 after a successful career in high tech. In 1999, he was given statewide responsibility for wraparound services and has continued working diligently, powerfully, and impactfully at Uplift as the president and now currently as the CEO. And I'm happy to welcome back Daryl to receive this commendation with respect and honor and love from the Board of Supervisors on his well-earned retirement, which I suspect will not mark nearly the end of his community involvement. Daryl.
Oh my gosh, thank you all. I've delivered these on your behalf to other folks, and I always thought they were a good thing, and I didn't realize how emotionally impactful they are personally. So thank you. I kind of said what I thought. The one important thing I'd want to share with you all is that I've actually had the privilege to know you all personally, and I would describe you all not as politicians, but as public servants. And I feel like our community is really, really fortunate to have each and every one of you in your roles. And I've had this experience of providing services across the state, and I've gotten to see the forward-thinking, thoughtful way the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors has approached its role. And you guys are second to none. So thank you for the commendation, and more importantly, thank you for all that you do for our community. It's really, really appreciated, and I suspect that you don't hear it often enough. So thanks.
Thank you. And Vice President Ellenberg, if you don't have any additional comments, I'll turn to Supervisor Chavez. Thank you, Supervisor Chavez.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Mike. And Susan, thank you so much for bringing Daryl forward to acknowledge him. Just a couple of kind of broad thoughts I have. One is, I think the nonprofits that serve our community are just tremendous. And what makes Uplift such a powerful partner is the long legacy of innovation, thinking really critically and aggressively about how to help children. And Daryl, I would just say to you that I think what you reflect so beautifully to me is servant leadership. And you know, part of doing the right thing is also doing it right. And you've really been, to me, just a beacon of that kind of, you know, forward-thinking leadership that has helped thousands and thousands of families, thousands of us across the county. So thank you. And across the state, thank you. And congratulations. And I'm sure you will be retired for about an hour.
Thank you. I have some comments as well, if there's no other supervisorial hands raised. Daryl, as you were talking, and thank you very much for saying public servant. I really appreciate that. I'm honored to be on this board. I'm honored to have been a public servant for a long time, as well as many of my my other board members. Back in the 70s, my mom was the president of Eastfield, and I worked for Eastfield and then Ming Kwang with the strawberry festivals in the 70s and 80s, making up strawberry sundaes, things like that. And then with my baseball card shop in the 90s, I think when you were with EMQ, that's the first time we met. I don't know how much later after that Craig came along, but we did that, and my card shop was a supporter of EMQ for 14 years. And you were so inspirational. And you did such a great job as a leader of an organization that everyone I ever heard speak of EMQ spoke of it very favorably. And then you had your mega merger with Uplift Family Services. And it wasn't just this piece of land on an intersection in Los Gatos that I was familiar with the kids there. It was learning from you statewide, how you were taking your leadership, your inspiration, your motivation, your love for children in need statewide. And I am so proud of you. I am so proud of the legacy that you've left. Thank you for your kudos to Santa Clara County. But on behalf of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, as its president, I want to share our kudos for you. Thank you very much. You're a tremendous human being. And on behalf of all of us, I wish you the very, very best in the years that you have ahead. And I believe in another 10 minutes, we have another commendation for you. So no, I'm kidding. Two's enough. Hey, Superman, thank you very, very much. Best wishes to you from all of us. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you.
Got me a little choked up there too, Supervisor Chavez and Ellenberg. All right, let's move on to Vice President Ellenberg for accommodation for on behalf of LAFCO.
Supervisor Simidian has his hand up.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Simidian, some comments you have.
Thank you. Before Daryl vacates the premises, I just wanted to say me too. It's been said well, but as someone who had the opportunity to work with Uplift going back 25 years now in its prior incarnations, thank you doesn't begin to say it. So thank you both institutionally, but also thank you on a very personal level for a lifetime of commitment, really, that has made a difference we can't quantify in the lives of so many young people and families. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right, and Supervisor Lee was waving goodbye too. All right. With that, I will now turn it over to Vice President Ellenberg for a commendation for LAFCO.
Thank you again, President Wasserman. It is my honor to present this commendation honoring Santa Clara County Local Agency Formation Commission, that's what LAFCO stands for, on the 50th anniversary of its establishment of county-wide urban development policies. LAFCO has been integral to the county's smart growth and development for the past 50 years. Their mission, in fact, is to promote sustainable growth and good governance in the county. And since the creation of LAFCO, the population of Santa Clara County has tripled, and their workload, I think, has expanded exponentially more than that. LAFCO's work has protected hillsides, farmlands, and other open space lands. The organization has worked to promote efficiency of government services at the local level, and it is my pleasure to welcome and introduce Nalima Palacherla, the Executive Director of LAFCO. Nalima, would you like to say a few words, and then I'm going to come back and introduce two more folks.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg, and good morning to the members of the Board of Supervisors. On behalf of LAFCO, I want to thank you for this commendation recognizing the 50th anniversary of LAFCO's adoption of the countywide urban development policies. LAFCO adopted these policies on December 1st, 1971, and soon after, the county and the 15 cities also adopted these policies. This was then a pioneering effort to cooperatively guide future growth and development in Santa Clara County. And over the last 50 years, consistent implementation of these policies has helped make Santa Clara County a more livable, sustainable place than it would otherwise have become. Today, the policies form the foundation of all LAFCO policies and the county general plan as well. The policies are consistent with climate-smart growth concepts that have taken shape in recent years, and the policies are forward-looking and will remain crucial for meeting our shared greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. Thank you to the visionaries who crafted and put in place these sound policies that are relevant not just for today, but for the foreseeable future of Santa Clara County. Thank you once again to the Board of Supervisors and LAFCO Chair Ellenberg and LAFCO Commissioner Wasserman for recognizing the importance of these policies. Thank you.
Thank you. You're muted, Vice President.
Thank you. And thanks, Nalima, for your comments. And we are really fortunate today to be able to introduce and recognize two of the former planners who had a significant hand in creating this policy, Bob Sturdivant and Eric Carruthers. If they are with us today, I would like to invite each of them to say a few words so that we can recognize you for your role in this historic work.
Do we have them on?
I see both of their names. Bob just came off mute. Go ahead, Bob.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you very much, Supervisor Ellenberg. This is a very short time for us to speak, so I'm just going to give you a couple of headlines, a few headlines. During the 1960s and early 70s, there was a confluence of events and things that happened during those years that created an opportunity for us to create some kind of a former countywide development plan. First of all, the PPC, which was the Policy Planning Committee, was formed, and they were discussing countywide planning problems, including transportation. And I hope Eric will say just a minute about that, because he was the lead person relative to that function. The state law, of course, as you've mentioned, LAFCO was put in play in 1963 and really started working very well in the later 1960s. That time period, we had city annexation wars going on, really initiated by Dutch Hammond, who wanted Santa Clara County or wanted San Jose to become the Los Angeles of the North. So we had lots of safety problems occurring at that time, where first responders tried to find somebody that was calling in. They didn't know where the boundaries were, and so there was confusion that occurred at that time. Then, fortunately, we had a lot of planning directors here in Santa Clara County that were very concerned about development and open space. So they formed a group called SCAPO. That's the Organization Planning Directors, Santa Clara County. And their concern about managing growth led us into a program which we eventually called Udos, Urban Development and Open Space Plan. I was the lead on this particular effort, and through a lot of work, hard work on the part of the former city planning directors and the county, we adopted what is now called the Urban Development Open Space Plan, which created spheres of influence for the city. So they knew where they were, where they could go. And the county and the cities all adopted this plan. And fortunately, at that time, then of course we had LAFCO that was operating very well. LAFCO was then given the opportunity to adjudicate any problems, and certainly is still operating very well now after 50 years. It's hard to believe. And this particular kind of program is the first in the nation. I didn't know if you were aware of that, but this was the first time that any kind of a management plan was occurred. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Bob. Really appreciate the history and honor that you could be with us today. Mr. Carruthers, did you want to add anything, or did Bob cover it all? Mr. Sturdivant cover it all?
Well, I'm here. We're getting a message that we can't do video for some reason.
Right, but we can hear you loud and clear.
Just so long I understand where we are. This is an important time, a great honor for me. I can't tell you how rewarding it was to be working for Santa Clara County with boards of supervisors year after year that were so progressive and cities that were interested in cooperation. But the important thing for us right now, for the board, is to realize how key the County Board of Supervisors was in bringing these joint programs to fruition, and how important it is for the board to realize that these policies being implemented now by LAFCO are tremendously important for the future. They help keep us sustainable. In addition to the other benefits that they bring, they help reduce the growth, for example, of climate changing gases, because they help keep our growth, our urban growth, contained. Spatially compact urban growth helps reduce the growth of our daily miles traveled in our individual cars compared to what it would be if our growth is allowed to spread out all over. Making our population less spread out makes public transit more feasible, meaning more cars off the road, but also a tremendous social goal in making people who can't or don't drive have access to jobs, to services, and a rich life. Worldwide, transportation is one of the major causes of climate changing emissions. And anything we can do in Santa Clara County to reduce those emissions or their growth helps reduce climate change. And the urban development and open space policies developed by the county with LAFCO for LAFCO's administration, an important key part of that. So thanks for the opportunity, and hope you keep on the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Carruthers. Thank you, Vice President Ellenberg.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move on to 5C as in Charlie and turn to Supervisor Lee for this commendation.
Yes, thank you, President Wasserman. For C, we're presenting a commendation for Empower and Excel for its dedication and service to improve the quality of life of our residents here right here in Santa Clara County. Empower and Excel was founded back in 2015, a nonprofit organization based purely on volunteering, with a mission to empower youth and children to give back to the community early in their life by serving their underprivileged and communities in need. Today, Aisha Charagula, President and CEO of Empower and Excel, is joining us and will have a few words to say a little later. Empower and Excel runs a number of projects in pursuit of this mission, including tutoring services in low-income communities, gardening, programs for the elderly, inclusive immersion interactions with special needs children, donation drives to provide toys, books, school supplies, and clothes for underprivileged children, cooking and serving food at local homeless shelters, and providing care packages for the unhoused population. I have the honor a few weeks ago to be joining the group to hand out blankets and jackets, the blankets which they bought the material and actually made it themselves to make it double layer for the on the house we have right here in San Jose, right by the airport. And these are truly appreciated and choose as well by so many. Empower's Excel accomplishment includes serving over 131,000 meals and 72,000 baked goods to the needy, 81,000 volunteer hours to the community, and 1,700 youth volunteers who serve the community. Just in 2021 alone, in the middle of COVID, these volunteers have prepared over 87,000 meals, 45,000 baked goods, and accomplished more than 11,000 volunteer hours. Now I want to read some excerpts from the commendation. Whereas during the COVID-19 pandemic, Empower and Excel created opportunities for youth to volunteer in the following areas: preparing hot meals and sandwiches, distributing blankets to the Bay Areas and house, and keeping community garden beautiful. The volunteers also collected $125,000 worth of baby formula and made baby blankets for newborns in low-income communities, created handmade cards to lift hospital patient spirits, and collected over $60,000 to establish 16 triage centers and purchase 1 ambulance and 20 oxygen cylinders for Indian medical professionals during the height of the Delta variant in their country, and for its dedication and service to improve the quality of life for residents of Santa Clara County. Thank you for your dedication, services, and supporting on the house community. And the Vice Chair, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you so much, Supervisor Atuli. Good morning to Board of Supervisors and all participants and attendants on the call. We are very honored to receive this commendation. We want to thank again Supervisor Atuli and his caring staff for recognizing our youth's service for the community. This recognition really encourages and motivates our youth further to do more for the community. Like Supervisor Lee mentioned, that there are like various projects we have been conducting in the community by involving youth, so that it makes a difference for the community. At the same time, we make a difference in a growing child to become a better citizen. So our youth's work is not just giving hours to the community, but efforts for each activity they put in, it has been like deep and lasting impacts, as they are like growing and becoming mature person. Our platform has become a wonderful model for our future generations to treat every human being with the dignity and kindness. I want to thank you, our volunteers and their families, for making each day of work something we can really be proud of. So again, want to thank you, thank Board of Supervisors for encouraging small organizations like us to live up to our, inspiring mission and vision. So thank you again. And we don't have enough words to appreciate what you do for the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Supervisor Lee, for bringing this to our board. With that, we're going to move on to item number 6, which is public comment. This is the opportunity, and Dave, on our screen, maybe it's just my screen. Here we go. Full gallery. Thank you very much. This is the opportunity for anyone to speak about anything not on today's agenda that reasonably or realistically comes under the purview of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors. So I'm going to give us a minute or so, 30 seconds or so here, Dave, for people to register electronically by raising their hand. And then we will determine the amount of minutes each speaker gets. And after this, for all the people listening, item 7 is our consent calendar, where you'll also have an opportunity to speak once the board has determined what is and is not on the consent calendar.
Mr. Chair, we currently have seven members of the public who wish to speak.
All right, let's go with 2 minutes here. And again, for everybody listening, this is for any item not on today's agenda. Thank you. Go ahead, Dave.
All right, one moment while we get the timer up. The first speaker is Gail Osmer. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Well, that was quick. Thank you. Good morning. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
I want to talk on the subject of RVs, and I know it's a subject that everybody's been talking about for many years, but there's so much land over there in the backside of the fairgrounds. And what I'm scared most of what's going to happen to the folks over there in phase 3 under the FAA there, that there's no place for them to go. There's many RVs, and I'm not sure what's happening. There's nobody working on anything for RV safe parking. I'd like to use some of that land for them for just a few months until they can find something for permanent RV parking. They're not even working on any housing at this point, for the next few months to even house anybody. I know there's a lot coming down the pike, but they need to be working on the city and the county. So I wish you would consider just a little piece of land for 50 or 60 RVs or 100 that are over there at phase 3 on Heading and Spring area, just for a little bit until the city can find some safe parking for them. Thank you so much and happy holidays.
The next speaker is Irvish. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you very much to all the Board of Supervisors, President, Vice President, and the respective supervisors of the district. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you for opportunity to, and as well as a representative, to provide the comments. I wanted to mention about 3 things. One, the medical vaccination passport, the Santa Clara County Public Health Department and the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors has the opportunity to issue a medical vaccination passport as what the European Commission, European countries, and as well as the Asian countries, where they have introduced the digital certificate for the vaccination and the booster shots that they have taken, and the way they would be managing the vaccination certificate for the COVID-19. So in a way that when any individual passing through the travel state department from city to county or to a state to a country or at any level within domestically or international, they would be able to have that digital certificate to produce and provide the way of the way of authentication that they are medically approved and vaccinated to travel. Secondly, I wanted to also wanted to convey about converting those COVID-19 certificate to a digital certificate, and that's how the county can maintain the entire records of a vaccination for all the citizens within the county of Santa Clara. Third, I wanted to mention that this entire enormous task requires a lot of coordination within the science and innovation and technology, and as well as with the district, county, and city, and as well as state representatives to coordinate with, and also to ensure that the right set of the policy and standards to be implemented as well. Thank you very much for consideration.
The next speaker is Linda Edwards. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Good morning, everyone. 20 months ago, you asked us to shut down our society to flatten the curve to save our healthcare system, and we did, negatively impacting so many people's jobs and businesses, including a few of my friends. But we did it because you said it was for the greater good. Then you asked us to endure more lockdowns and restrictions to reach herd immunity to save the elderly and immunocompromised. But now, after looking at data from around the world, we know that there will be no herd immunity because these vaccines do not provide immunity. They do not stop person-to-person transmission, and their effectiveness against severe disease wanes within mere months, requiring never-ending boosters. It doesn't matter if it's the Delta variant, Omicron variant, or Xanadu. We will continue to have variant after variant after variant. It is now time to treat COVID like the endemic virus that it is. Just like the seasonal flu, we have to learn to live with it. Stop focusing on COVID case counts, which we know from past experience are inaccurate with faulty PCR tests and many false positives. Instead, we need to focus on hospitalization rates and deaths. Both of those rates are low in our county. Let's talk about early in-home treatment kits like they're doing in other countries. Let's get IV monoclonal antibody treatment clinics like they're doing in other states. Let's get widespread antibody testing to see what our natural immunity rates are. With over 152,000 recorded positive COVID cases, we should be around 750,000 people in our county with robust and long-lasting immunity, able to fight off all 28 of the virus proteins, not just the one spike protein. That's a third of our county with natural immunity that protects them and all of us. If we work together, we can find a way to live with this virus. Let's figure it out sooner rather than later. I oppose vaccine mandates and vaccine passports. Thank you very much. And also thank you for the bonus for the Santa Clara County employees. I appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mary Borisonic. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking. Mary, are you there? Mary is not unmuting. We will move on to the next speaker. The next speaker is Blair Beekman. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thank you. I hope you can hear me. As I have to leave early today to try to offer items 9, 11, and 18 together, I continue good luck in how to talk about the practices of open public policies and accountability for the future of technology, surveillance technology and data collection. This can help much for an overall well-rounded approach we need at this time, with ideas of reimagining and equity to better address current crime and law enforcement concerns. Open public policies can help shape good outdoor trail policies needed for surveillance tech in the future of Coyote Valley. Carrying tech policies can simply offer a safe, good, neutral space for all sides to consider the COVID-19 vaccine process and things like the future of biometric video cameras. And as I've offered many times, it is open public policies and accountability that can work hand in hand with digital equity ideas that can bring more genuine ideas of how to build positive community health and sustainability. To conclude, a good luck that we can rally at this time to ask the CPUC to not move forward with solar plans that will block future accessibility in our continuing efforts towards better solar practices. Thanks for your time today. Good luck to the meeting. Happy end of the year to everybody, and good luck to the meeting today. Thank you.
Next speaker is Scott Largent. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Happy holidays, Scott Largent. Didn't get the whole cup of coffee going yet, so just bear with me. I woke up a little late. I went to the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV, yesterday with several other people, trying to figure out what would need to be done to get temporary operating permits, even the 1-month ones that you can put in the window. I was able to get together, a list of parts that people are buying, little things that they're doing to make their RVs roadworthy. Now, the safe parking programs are not going to materialize. I don't want to. I mean, I love what Gail does, getting on there and just chanting for, come on, please, please, please. Why not? Can you do this? I don't think they're gonna materialize. I think it's just going to be a big tow fest. And unless people are roadworthy with temporary tags, temporary operating permits, they're hosed from the get-go. So I think that's a good route right now, because these people are going to come to your neighborhoods. Okay. I'm moving back to Los Gatos, Mike. I am going to take this 35-footer and it's going to be over in LG. So I'm going to get the $896 together. And that big 40-foot beast is going to be basically parked in neighborhoods of your constituents. Well, actually, I am also, and so is my family. I would have preferred to have just parked in a safe parking program, but it's time for Los Gatos to get used to this now. So more people are coming back, and I don't really see a problem with that now. No other options. So people need to go back to their communities, to where they came from. San Jose is not going to help you. They're going to gas you, take your motorhome, put you in jail, and you're going to be in a creek. So get that RV ready, get back to the hometown you came from.
Next speaker is Ruth Mesfin. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hello, thank you very much. This is Elizabeth. My name is Elizabeth. I have worked in BMC as HSA for 4 years. My job is to do direct patient care. I'm here to talk about County Hero Pay. I'm thankful the board approved it earlier this year. However, people like me, we are overlooked because of partial code. I am a 0.5 code. However, I almost always work full-time hours. This means I am constantly at risk of cost of my benefits. And it also means I didn't get the full hero pay, even though I worked full-time during height of the pandemic season. My coworkers and I are healthcare heroes. We were here since start of COVID-19. We ask that you please compensate partial codes, the difference for full-time hero pay. It's only fair. Thank you very much.
We're going to go back one more time and try Mary Borisonic. Mary, I've unmuted you. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Mary, are you there? Okay, she's not responding. That concludes our request to speak, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Excuse me. With that, we're going to move on to item number 7, which is approving the consent calendar and change the Board of Supervisors agenda. We're going to start out with Mr. Leone reading what we have on the current consent calendar update.
We have a request from Supervisor Lee to add item number 10 to the consent calendar. Item 10 is to approve a referral to County Council to report to the board with options for consideration relating to revising Board Policy 3.68 on donations and sponsorships using county assets. We have a request from Vice President Ellenberg, Supervisor Chavez, and Supervisor Lee to add item numbers 12 through 14 to the consent calendar. Item number 12 is to approve county sponsorship of the African American Community Service Agency in the amount of $5,000 from the Supervisorial District 2 allocation in the Office of the Clerk of the Board fiscal year 2021-2022 budget to support the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day luncheon on January 17, 2022. Item number 13 is to accept a donation of $40,000 from Broadcom on behalf of Supervisorial District 3 for Day on the Bay 2021 and other community events. We have, my apologies, item number 14 is to approve county sponsorship of youth community service in the amount of $1,000 from the Supervisorial District 5 allocation in the Office of the Clerk of the Board fiscal year 2021-2022 budget to support their Martin Luther King Jr. Day of service. We have a request from Supervisor Chavez to add item number 20 to the consent calendar. Item number 20 is to receive a report from the Office of the District Attorney relating to county strangulation response and prevention efforts. We have a request from Vice President Ellenberg to add item number 22 to the consent calendar. Item number 22 is to receive a report relating to the countywide student work study program and approve modification of the program framework. We have a request from President Wasserman and Supervisor Chavez to add item number 24 to the consent calendar. Item number 24 is to approve an agreement with Airbo Inc., DBA De Peña Studio, relating to providing services for the design, fabrication, and installation of a work of art at the Animal Services Center in an amount not to exceed $396,000 for period December 7th, 2021 through June 30th, 2023. We have a request from administration to hold item number 26 to date uncertain. Item number 26 is to receive a report relating to vacant and or underutilized county-owned site or sites in San Jose, Campbell, and Santa Clara for an interim housing development, including options for a safe parking location, all available funding opportunities, and estimates of the development and operation costs. We have a request from the clerk of the board to hold item number 29B to January 11th, 2022. Item number 29B is to approve the minutes of the November 16th, 2021 regular meeting. We have a correction to item number 39. Item number 39 is to consider recommendations relating to community water fluoridation project at the McLaughlin Wellfield site. Action B should read, approve request for appropriation modification number 105, $1,175,908, transferring funds from the general fund contingency reserve to the public health department budget relating to water fluoridation for East San Jose residents, requiring a 4/5 vote. Action C should read, approve funding agreement with San Jose Water Company relating to construction of the McLaughlin Wellfield fluoridation project in an amount not to exceed $5,795,665 for period December 14th, 2021 through December 31st, 2023 that has been reviewed and approved by County Council as to form and legality. And finally, we have a request from administration to hold item number 57 to January 25th, 2022. Item number 57 is to approve an agreement with Young Women's Freedom Center relating to providing life coaches with lived experience in human trafficking in an amount not to exceed $676,384 for period December 15th, 2021 through December 31st, 2022. And that concludes my list.
Thank you, David. I'm turning to Dr. Smith now for comments.
Yes, Mr. President, I wanted to also ask from administration that we hold item 25 until January 11th so we can hear it together with another item that's related.
Hold number 25. Okay. Supervisors, any other additions, deletions, or comments before I turn to the public? Yes, Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Smith. I think that will, item 25 will make it easier for the community to know how to respond. I appreciate that. I have a few comments and many things, Mike, I want to keep on consent. So I just wanted to tell you that that was my Christmas present to you.
Thank you.
Item 20 is the report from the district attorney relating to the IPV strangulation response program training for law enforcement. I really want to thank the entire team for their efforts, and I would like to request an annual report be prepared and brought to the board at one of our meetings in February. This report should include data, implementation challenges, and what is being done to address those challenges, and recommendations for improvement and resources as necessary. Item 26, this is a staff report on the referral regarding interim housing sites, and it's been deferred to a date uncertain by administration. I'd like to request that staff return with this report at our first meeting in January. I would like to comment and make a request regarding item 39. Item 39, I want to just say how much I appreciate the support of the additional costs to proceed with the McLaughlin Wells fluoridation project that will eventually improve the dental and overall health of over 100,000 people on the east side of San Jose. I know that you stated the county, Joe, this is for you, that you started the county on the fluoridation path in 1999 when you began with the championing of fluoridation for Mountain View. In my 2014 referral, I called out that in her state of the county address, Liz Ness set a goal to complete fluoridation as one of the county's in the county's water supply in 5 years. We've missed that goal by at least 8 years. And my understanding is even with this project, there will still be areas in Supervisor Ellenberg's district where we need to address fluoridation. What I'd like to do is request that the board receive an off-agenda report detailing what else needs to be done and the plans to secure funding and accomplish this important goal. And I'd like to have that come to the board in April of next year. I'm sorry, just a couple more. Item 56 is a response to my referral asking that a resolution regarding the use of principles of equity in policy and budget decisions be amended to include the concepts outlined in the Disability Inclusion Equity Pledge. I wanted to thank staff for their work on this and thank Michelle Mashburn for authoring the Disability Inclusion Equity Pledge. One other item, and that is on the life coaches on item 57. I really want to thank the staff for working with the Young Women's Freedom Center. I think this is a really important opportunity for us to learn more about how to work with the community in these areas. On item 58 is the small grant state program application. I really want to thank staff for working to prepare and submit this grant application. And I'm really excited. I feel like we're going to be very effective in competing for that pot of money. Colleagues, item 21, just as to remind everyone, item 21 was an item that we've been kicking around for quite a while relative to the Title IX analysis. And what I would like to, item 21, thank you. What I would like to recommend is that we put this item on consent and with the following language, that we direct administration to issue an RFP allowing law firms, only to submit proposals with the capacity to do interviews and focus groups of impacted communities. And that contract oversight be dedicated to one department with one owner so that it's easy for us to follow up on the good work that I know our staff will do. And those would be my additions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those. Vice President Ellenberg and then Supervisor Lee.
Thanks so much. Am I off of mute?
You are.
Sorry. Thank you. Item 10 is my colleague's request to amend the sponsorship policy brought forward by me and Supervisor Wasserman. The board created the policy prior to Supervisor Lee's joining the board, and Supervisor Lee, I don't know if you're aware of the discussions that led to its approval. There were two primary drivers for the policy. First, to ensure that CBOs would know that they have funding well in advance of their events. I'm certain, and I've heard that it adds considerable stress to planning if the board's contribution isn't certain. Second, it affords ample opportunity for the Board of Supervisors to publicize the event and to be recognized in pre-event publicity materials. I think it's really important for the public to be aware when public dollars are being used to support community events. And I understand that tight timelines are rough and that some organizations may not yet be aware of the policy that was enacted 1.5 years or so ago. Dr. Smith has committed to notifying all our current and recent past sponsorship recipients of the new policy. Each Board of Supervisors office can also share the policy information with their contacts as regularly as they like, and of course, in a pinch, ask for an exception to the policy. I would much rather we work harder to spread awareness so that we can keep in place a policy that promotes transparency, fairness, and good government, rather than reel it back because the cycle may feel rushed in some cases. And I'd like to respectfully ask that we hold this item to a date uncertain and give the current policy more time to be socialized and adhered to. Second, item 42 is the Policies and Procedures Guide for the AOT program. I really appreciate staff bringing this document back, and I think it's critically important for both the advisory body and the Board of Supervisors to have confidence that this program is established in a way that assures that people are connected to resources efficiently, that protects the rights of consumers in the referral and court processes, and that fits into the larger system of behavioral health care in our county. I have far more questions than might reasonably resolved during today's meeting. That's my Christmas present to you, President Wasserman. And I'd like to allow staff and the advisory body to meet on these questions and update the policies to reflect the planned operation of the program as needed. So I'd like to direct that staff review the memo that I've attached to today's agenda and bring back a report along with any updates to the policies and procedures to the board either in January or early February, so long as it's prior to the launch of the AOT program. And in particular, I'd like for the mechanisms to connect AOT clients to housing supports and how this will be monitored and evaluated to be clearly spelled out in the plans. And finally, item 43 includes the mid-year adjustment to the FY22 MHSA plan and the proposed FY23 annual plan. The MHSA funding and the plans for use of those funds is a critical component of our local behavioral health system. For next year, MHSA will fund $150 million out of the approximately $600 million department budget. Again, this is a critical piece of our behavioral health system, but still it's only a piece. I'm really looking forward to attending and participating in the board workshop session that Dr. Smith suggested at our last meeting, offering a presentation of the entirety of our behavioral health system to review resources, gaps, and the interactions of the system as a whole so that we can really drive improvements to our residents. Dr. Smith, has a date for this session been identified?
At this point, we're planning on doing it on the 11th.
The 11th of January. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks very much. That's all I have, President Wasserman.
Thank you, Vice President Ellenberg. Now I turn to Supervisor Lee.
Thank you, President Wasserman. I don't have any change to the consent calendar other than speaking on one of the issues, which is item number 43, regarding the MHSA mid-year adjustment plan. And I just would like to make a comment about the fact that really want to acknowledge the hard work that our behavioral health BHSD staff has done, and also the MHSA, the Mental Health Service Act Stakeholder Leadership Committee, and also the Behavioral Health Board and the service providers and the community stakeholders for including the Assisted Outpatient Treatment, AOT, in the MHSA FY22 mid-year adjustment plan. I understand it took a lot of effort to weave AOT into the MHSA plans after our colleagues and I approved AOT early this year. So I would just like to take a moment to show my appreciation for everyone who've been able to help make this happen. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Lee. Supervisor Simitian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just ask that you call on me prior to the roll call on the consent calendar when we get to that point. But after public comment, I do have a couple of minor variations on the I vote that ultimately I will be casting. Okay, just at that time, after public comment.
After public comment. All right. David, I see a couple of members wanting to speak. Would you give them 2 minutes each? Oh, Dr. Smith first.
I'm sorry, I just had people having a heart attack in behavioral health. The meeting for the workshop will actually be the 25th of January, not the 11th.
Gotcha. So after the Super Bowl. Okay, good. Glad we got that straightened out. All right. David, 2 minutes each for our speakers.
All right, one moment, please, while we get the timer.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Molly McLeod. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Good morning. My name is Molly McLeod, and I want to express my deep appreciation for item 56 and the fact that it's on consent calendar, indicating the unanimous support of the Board of Supervisors for the resolution affirming the county's commitment to using principles of equity in policy and budget decisions and expanding it to explicitly recognize disability and inclusion as a key element of equity. I want to echo Supervisor Chavez's praise for Michelle Mashburn, who has been a true leader and drafted the use of the principles of equity and disability inclusion that was adopted and included in this resolution. Thank you so much. This is a very important milestone in progress for the deep commitments that you have made and are continuing to affirm. Thank you.
Next speaker is Urbish. I've unmuted you. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much again to all the Board of Supervisors. I wanted to mention about the item number 11 with the digital divide. With respect to the digital divide, in the year 2020, the City of San Jose provided a set of allocation and a grant programs for the digital device with the internet services as well as the handheld devices to be provided to the schools, educational institution, nonprofits for the education, for the resources and educational purpose on the technology. So certainly that is also that is to mention about the program to introduce and as well as some of the grants to be allotted as well as a part of a federal and the state funding to provide the to have the digital divide, and as well as to make sure that that the technology is being accessible to every county and the city departments. Also, I wanted to mention about the surveillance item number 18 for the surveillance use policy for video security cameras. The ordinance to be updated in terms of a neighborhood policies as well, whereas to make sure that how the surveillance of a security camera is being utilized and what are the jurisdiction of a First Amendment, Second Amendment rights being applicable when any video recording is being placed, not just in terms of a surveillance and security cameras, but as well as if those security cameras are being a part of any security purpose services as well. Also, I wanted to mention about the item number 20, item number 30 for the Veterans Affair, as I mentioned about the grant grant programs and act to mention, also to enable the development of a Communities Pass Act for.
The next speaker is Michelle Dauber. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Michelle Dauber. I'm a professor of law at Stanford Law School. I agree with Supervisor Chavez that the board should move item 21 to the consent calendar. More than a year ago, this board approved a legal compliance audit of school-based sexual harassment and sexual violence in the Santa Clara County schools and colleges. Regrettably, the RFSQ process resulted in the selection of a vendor that lacked essential experience and legal expertise. It is my hope that the feedback from the board members has now put this on the right track for the selection of a law firm to conduct a legal compliance audit, including trauma-informed interviews and focus groups as needed. And I was very happy to hear what Supervisor Chavez had to say this morning. As you may know, the Biden administration is moving very slowly to reconsider the Donald Trump Betsy DeVos regulations, much slower than advocates anticipated and much slower than our students need. Hopefully, you can see that this audit is still very much needed, as the shocking situation with the Larry Nassar-like abuse allegations at San Jose State show. Hopefully, staff now has received the appropriate direction from the board and will move swiftly to select a law firm and get this audit done. The survivors and women of this county cannot wait. Thank you.
The next speaker is Blair Beekman. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beekman here. For item 58, I still hope Santa Clara County local governments can continue to find open, creative ways to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine process with everyday community, as the current Omicron variant may not be so threatening through this winter. As many people want their good health and may be very willing to voluntarily take the vaccine, continued good mask use, good new air filtration systems, and continued good hand washing can be of continued help towards good community health and safety that can be of much interest in the continued good practices of small businesses of this item. Alameda County, with a very strong Democratic Party base, does not yet have a vaccine mandate for its local government workers. Why do you think this is? I hope Santa Clara County and the city of San Jose will want to reconsider mandatory vaccine ideas, and that good community health and safety ideas may be to consider good forgiveness plans for local government workers and people who will still be uncomfortable with taking the vaccine. To speak on item 71, technology services relating to jail management services, this sounds like it can include biometric camera use. I hope it could become easier to talk about COVID-19 vaccine technology with good open public policy ideas and practices with things like the future of biometric camera use. Thank you incredibly for the video camera tech that will be a regular agenda item today as item 18. I have 23 seconds left. I think that's about all for myself. Thank you.
Next speaker is Scott Largent. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Scott Largent. Item number 42 on the consent calendar, the assisted outpatient treatment, whether it's directly through behavioral health or Judge Manley's courtroom, I don't think these programs are effective when you're treating people that are in fields and when they're stuck in creeks and you can't properly get to them. I think you're kind of manufacturing mental health problems in a way. Prime example, the porta-johns out here right now, you literally have to have a boat to go get to the bathroom, which makes it very difficult. When these storms came through, destroying everybody's structures, they're now very cold, they're very wet, they're shivering out in fields. That starts to make them go batty. And they start to kind of lose it out there. You hear people start to scream, they're frustrated, and a lot of them resort to self-medicating. They get on meth. And the whole thing is it sad part is that's their hope right now. This outpatient treatment is garbage. Even the stuff with Judge Manley's courtroom throughout most of the pandemic, he had people that had mental health issues and drug problems phoning into court. Okay. Most of these people didn't even have phones that were functioning or the ability to charge them since the libraries were shut down, rec centers. None of them were checking in. So they kind of left them out here. But the problem is they remain to leave them out here. Let's put them somewhere like that's dignified. If we can't get them into psych wards and we can't get them into actually brick and mortar buildings, build some sanctioned encampments, build a safe parking program so you can properly help these people. The worst part is seeing people go through a muddy field in a wheelchair. I mean, that just, it makes you want to cry, but it also makes you curious. You're like, come on, people. It's not right out here. And just don't leave these people alone. These are human beings.
That concludes our requests to speak.
Thank you very much, David. I now turn back to Supervisor Smitty. You are muted if you are speaking, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to indicate that I would be a no vote on items 96 and 74 on our consent calendar when the time comes. These are the items related to redistricting that we've discussed at length previously. And then I'll also be an abstention on item 51 and 24. So again, abstention on 24 and 51, no vote on 96 and 74. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. David, I assume you got that, and I've got 4 more for you. I'm going to abstain on 84A. I'm going to be a no vote on 74. And I just have 2 comments, one on 24 and one on 92, that I will be in favor of both of those. Regarding number 24, the Animal Service Center, I just want to say it's been one of the most fulfilling projects for me in my time as supervisor of District 1. As we put the final touches on the center, I'm optimistic that the artist, Ivan De Peña, will also demonstrate his passion for art and animals to bring even more life into our new facility. I look forward to seeing some of those pieces myself in the future. So I'm still an aye vote, obviously, on number 24. And on number 92, I'm also an aye vote. And I just want to say it's not often that we see such robust infrastructure improvements to our roads and highways in the county. In this case, I believe that the Santa Teresa Extension Project will certainly benefit many commuters in South County. I'm certain that these improvements will result in noticeable differences in traffic and, more importantly, create safer transportation avenues. For these reasons, I'm happy to give this project my support. David, do you feel comfortable in all that you've heard?
Yes.
Okay, so if I may have a motion for approval, in fact, I'll just speed it up. I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Chavez? Oh, sorry, Otto. Go ahead,
It's
Otto.
okay. Doesn't matter.
Are you guys going to flip over? Do we go with Supervisor Lee? What would you like?
Lee.
Supervisor Lee.
Thank you.
Is second. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands raised, David, a roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Lee.
Aye.
Supervisor Chavez.
Yes.
Supervisor Simidian.
Aye, with abstentions and no votes as noted.
Noted. Thank you, sir. Vice President Ellenberg.
Yes.
And President Wasserman.
Thank you, with the abstention and no vote as noted as well.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we move on to item 8, was a public hearing to be heard no earlier than 10 a.m. It is 10:47, so we met the first qualification. This is a public hearing to consider Santa Clara County Permanent Local Housing Allocation Consortium and application for state permanent local housing allocation funds. And with that said, I'm going to open the public hearing and receive any testimony on item 8.
We currently have no hands raised, Mr. Chair.
I see that, so we have one hand raised.
We have one now, yes.
Okay, please give that one person 2 minutes.
One moment, please. Next speaker is Blair Beekman. I have unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks a lot for this item. I guess I've been trying to learn, for the past 6 months now in this new era of COVID, we're receiving a lot of new state and federal subsidy dollars at the local level. It's been a lot of help. It's been uncomfortable to learn how to begin to explain that to people, I think, a few months ago. I think we're getting used to it now with our good programs available. So thank you for that. The good that projects like Home Key can do at this time, they're incredibly valuable, important, but I feel we have to really continue a good focus how this new subsidy money can really, really help already established, good housing programs. And it's an awesome thought to consider how it can be of help at this time, and what we can really house low-income people and people who are houseless. So good luck in these issues. And with this new subsidy money coming in right now that we're just starting to get comfortable with, in the next 6 months to a year, this money is possibly slated, this good subsidy money for, like large developers of like urban villages in the San Jose area. That's the question. And that's a question mark that I think, cities around the Bay Area in their own way are going to have to be considering in the next 6 months and a year. I think we need to address that now. I don't think good subsidy money for low-income people should be slated for the future of high developers, high income developers. That it doesn't jive well. And we need to really consider those sort of practices in the next 6 months and year in the future of how to build our subsidy future. Thank you.
Next speaker is Claudia Rossi. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead. Claudia, are you there?
My apologies. I'm waiting for the next item, item
Okay.
number 9. Thank you.
All right, we will remove your permission to speak. President Wasserman, that concludes our request to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Leone. We have opened the public hearing and received testimony. We are now closing the public hearing. We're moving on to 8B, which is to consider recommendations relating to this allocation. And we have possible actions listed 1 through 4. Do I have any discussion or a motion? Supervisor Chavez, a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vice President Ellenberg beat you that time, Supervisor Lee. All right, we have a second. Any further discussion on this item, or I'll call for the vote? None. David, go right ahead.
Supervisor Lee.
Aye.
Supervisor Chavez.
Yes.
Supervisor Simidian.
Aye.
Vice President Ellenberg.
Yes.
President Wasserman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And item 8 passes unanimously. We now move on to item number 9. Let's see, under item number 9, under advisement from the February 9th, 2021 public hearing. This is a public hearing for the Coyote Valley Climate Resilience. And David, I'm going to open the public hearing on this and receive testimony, and then we'll turn to Jacqueline to open things up.
We
Does that
currently
work?
have, my apologies for the interruption, sir. We currently have 4 speakers.
Okay, let's go right ahead. We'll continue our 2 minutes.
All right. The next speaker is Gloria Ballard. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Good morning, President Wasserman and members of the board. My name is Gloria Ballard. I'm a principal with MH Engineering in Morgan Hill. I have provided information labeled supplement number 6 in your packet. I represent Kawahara Nursery. They are located at the south end of Coyote Valley. Kawahara Farms are 3rd generation farmers on this 45 plus acres. They employ approximately 400 employees and make efforts to house employees when possible. They have been on this site for 40 plus years and are planning for a 4th generation to come on board. Recent CV zoning information provided could prevent this from happening. Staff informs Kawahara farms that greenhouses with non-porous surfaces, gravel, concrete or asphalt are not to be included in the exemption of the CV zoning shown on page 4 of 5, which reads, it reads this way. It says, the development of agricultural uses are exempt from the above lot coverage standard, meaning they do not count towards the lot coverage maximum per parcel, providing that such development is auxiliary to on-site agriculture. I'm going to run out of time. But then when you go to the zoning, the actual zoning describes agricultural as the raising of animals, crops, or crop trees including crops grown within greenhouses. This new change in the wording, or as advice to my client, is devastating. We've seen a lot of tremendous support for this new CV zoning, but we ask for help in recognizing that greenhouses are an agricultural product and should be exempt from the 2-acre.
Next speaker is Brian Schmidt. I've unmuted you. You'll have 2 minutes. Please go ahead. Brian, are you there?
Yes.
Go
Good
ahead.
morning. Brian Schmidt here with Green Foothills. We ask that you support the staff and planning commission recommendations for Coyote Valley. After the crucial decision by San Jose to preserve its part of Coyote Valley, it becomes all the more important for the county to reinforce the existing designation for Mid and South Coyote Valley as exclusive agriculture. Working farmers and technical advisors in Coyote Valley and similar areas have submitted written comments to you demonstrating that farming remains viable, especially farming that targets the advantages of local markets. To call out the information you've received, there is a joint letter from 39 farmers and technical advisors, many of them from communities of color. To quote the letter, they say, our communities have always been relegated to lands deemed unfarmable, but our collective wisdom, labor, and tenacity have left the places we inhabit better off than they were when we met them. Long-term access to land is the investment needed to promote robust regional food sheds. To quote another letter from a farmer leasing land in Coyote Valley, most landowners are only comfortable with short-term land leases because of the prospect of being able to sell their land for extremely high prices that land goes for in this area. This is completely understandable from their point of view, but makes it difficult to improve upon the farming practices we have in place. And I will add the staff recommendations here help make long-term leases much more feasible. Finally, one crucial step that can be taken to support local agriculture is funding incentives. We hope that new funding for agricultural protection will be brought to the supervisors in coming months and that you will support that funding. This will bring us to the protected and vibrant Coyote Valley that we all aspire to see. Thank you.
Next speaker is Andrea Mckenzie. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
Good morning, President Wasserman and Supervisors. Andrea Mckenzie, General Manager, Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. I'm here today to request your support to create a Coyote Valley Climate Resilience Combining District. The staff recommendations before you represent a comprehensive and coordinated vision to address climate change through smart land use, voluntary incentives, and strategic land conservation. Protecting natural and working lands is one of the smartest investments we can make to build climate resilience in our region. And Coyote Valley is a rare, largely undeveloped valley floor that provides irreplaceable benefits to nature and people. The board's approval today would be in step with recent actions by the San Jose City Council to prioritize Coyote Valley for agriculture, open space, and natural resources over piecemeal development. The proposed amendments to the general plan and zoning ordinance implement an important element of the Santa Clara Valley Agricultural Plan and strike an appropriate balance between resource protection and property rights. The partnership of the county, city, authority, Peninsula Open Space Trust, and others to protect Coyote Valley as natural infrastructure is emerging as a statewide model for advancing climate goals through nature-based solutions. Your actions, when combined with the recent passage of AB 948, which established Coyote Valley as a landscape of statewide significance, and the governor's 30 by 30 executive order, which seeks to protect 30% of the state's land and waters by 2030 is unprecedented in the state and will without a doubt set the bar for nature-based policy solutions across California. We urge you to approve the staff recommendations and look forward to working with you to implement them. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Clinton Wu. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Clinton Wu, and I'm co-owner of Kawahara Nurseries in Morgan Hill and Gilroy. We are close to 75-year-old, third-generation, Asian-owned family business, employing over 400 employees at peak and housing many on company property. Our millions of garden plants are sold at hundreds of Home Depots, Costco's, Trader Joe's, and independent garden centers across California and Nevada, helping to offset greenhouse gases and climate change. We opened our current Morgan Hill facility in 1982 on just 8 acres. Today, we have sustainably grown our greenhouses to over 10 times the size on close to 90 acres. We thought the Coyote Valley zoning ordinance would help agricultural stakeholders, including nursery farmers like us. If that is in the true spirit of the ordinance, then it must be clarified that all greenhouses are defined as an agricultural use and exempt per the wording in the new zoning. Otherwise, the stated intention of the draft ordinance would be misaligned with the final outcome and create an overlooked discrepancy. We are the only medium-sized wholesale nursery left in the area, and we compete directly with larger conglomerates based in Southern California. We aren't building Amazon warehouses here, and the overlooked discrepancy threatens to drive us, one of the largest agriculture employers, out of Coyote Valley by negatively affecting our ability to sustainably grow and compete in the future. Thank you.
Next speaker is Roger Costa. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead. Roger, are you there? Roger is not unmuting. We will move on to the next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Roger.
Yes, good morning, supervisors. Please don't participate in the charade. Agriculture, specifically in the Coyote Valley, no longer works economically for most landowners. This is different than agriculture in the South County. According to the 2020 County Ag Report, Coyote Valley represents less than 15% of total county agricultural output. It is a decreasing share. Most of that coyote output is from a large industrialized mushroom farm and a large nursery operation that you've just heard from. Noted ag economists who have specifically studied coyote farm operations conclude that agriculture is not economically viable there. Others, so-called experts, cite no relevant local data and speak glowingly only about the general Santa Clara Valley, but not specifically about Coyote. Please don't sacrifice private Coyote landowner interests on the altar of open space by only allowing ag zoning for privately held property. The infrastructure support needed for ag has moved too far south. The ever-increasing traffic impact is self-evident. Please look at alternative land uses, which are also climate friendly, that would also work in Coyote Valley. Thank you.
The next speaker is Shani. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning. This is Shani Kleinhaus. I'm the environmental advocate for Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society. Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society supports staff recommendation to create a Coyote Valley Climate Resilience Combining District. The district would be joining San Jose in commitment to keep Coyote Valley rural and ecological landscape. This is a new era for Coyote Valley, as thousands of acres now offer opportunities for birds, wildlife habitat, and agriculture to thrive. We hope this legacy will persist into the future and provide us all with resilience that our region and planet need to withstand climate change and loss of biodiversity. Please approve staff recommendations. Thank you.
Next speaker is Gloria Ballard. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
Hello, this is Gloria Ballard. I did get to speak previously. so I won't reiterate what I said. Are there any questions of the facts that we've provided to the Board of Supervisors on the hardship this will create for?
Gloria, we can't go back and forth like that, but if they are, the stand by.
Pardon me?
I said we cannot go back and forth. This isn't a discussion period, but if there are any questions, just please stand by.
I didn't raise my hand again. So.
Okay, David, can you move on to our next speaker?
We will move on to the next speaker. Thank you. The next speaker is Gabrielle. I have unmuted you. You have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
Yes, Gabriel Hernandez, Director with the Si Se Puede Collective. And just want to weigh in on this item and how important the Coyote Valley is to the area. There's, again, the work that we've been doing with one of our organizations, Vaccination, and I know they are very involved in, again, working to support small farmers and agriculture. And I'm sure they'll speak to that after me, but again, looking for you all to support the Coyote Valley and keeping it as a farming option for, again, even some of the small farmers that we work with in the collective. And so hoping that you'll, again, support keeping Coyote Valley protected as another, area to do agriculture. I personally have picked in the orchards here, apricots and cherries on the east side, strawberries on Berryessa, and grapes on Tully Road. And, I know the land in the area very well, and that area does have access to water. And again, because of the temperate climate, it can be very fruitful. And so hoping that you'll all do the right thing here. Thank you.
The next speaker is Juan. I am unmuting you. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Juan.
Dear Board of Supervisors, my name is Juan Estrada. Some of you may be aware of my efforts as a community volunteer, which included serving on the San Jose General Plan Review Task Force, on which I voted in support of protecting Coyote Valley. I'm speaking today as a staff member of Green Foothills. You have an opportunity today to demonstrate that Santa Clara County possesses the courage and wisdom to take bold action that will benefit people today, tomorrow, and perhaps forever. Protecting Coyote Valley is both an environmental and an equity issue. Past development relied on sprawl into open space, resulting in inequitable impacts. As you may be aware, 43 local leaders signed on to an equity and inclusion letter to the San Jose City Council in support of protecting Coyote Valley. Over 2,400 community members also wrote emails to the council in support. Hundreds of community members have written to you. There have been and will be instances where you may not all agree. I urge you to, like the San Jose City Council, also seize this rare opportunity to show the world that when it comes to protecting the future for all, you stand together. Please vote in favor of the staff recommendations. Thank you.
The next speaker is Barton Heckman. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning, President Wasserman and supervisors. I'm Bart Heckman with Mattioni, O'Loughlin, and Heckman. My firm represents a number of Coyote Valley property owners whose lands are located in the corridor east of Monterey Road, where the long existing pattern of land use is unique in all of Coyote Valley. That corridor is comprised of a mix of parcels in the county and the city. As San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo stated in his November 12th memo, which was adopted by the San Jose City Council, there are distinct differences in the character and nature of the properties east of Monterey Road. My law partner, Norm Mattioni, has submitted letters to you dated December 6th, 7th, and 9th. In those letters, he identifies the wide variety of existing non-agricultural uses within the corridor, presents a detailed study establishing the lack of agricultural viability of the lands within the corridor, and provides Mayor Liccardo's memo, which was a springboard for the city of San Jose to direct its staff to return in February with a timeline to study expanded recreational and commercial uses for the properties in this corridor. As stated in that memo, the San Jose City Council specifically recognized that this could occur in a way that was compatible with the environmental objectives for Coyote Valley, and that the zoning they adopted is just a placeholder for the corridor until the city adopts new zoning that allows additional uses. This corridor is a blend of land in the city and the county, sitting side by side. It is simply smart planning for the county and city to work together to plan the uses allowed in the corridor so that there is a consistency in the uses allowed on the city parcels and the county parcels. For those reasons, we are asking the Board of Supervisors to take the same action regarding this corridor that the city took on November 12th. Direct your staff to come back to you in February with a timeline for a study of compatible additional uses for the corridor east of Monterey, coordinating that effort with the City of San Jose planning staff, which has recently commenced that process. Thank you.
Next speaker is Irvish. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much to all the Board of Supervisors. I think what Board of Supervisors would be looking at in terms of a permanent allocation of housing is that how the homeless people would be allocated the homes, and as well as how the urban planning can be done. So there is a right set of a model that is to be established as per the California state grants. Okay. I want to give an example of 8889.
Excuse me 1 second. Somebody's got their. David, would you stop Irvish's time, please?
Certainly. I believe that was Irvish who is having the audio issue, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you. Please continue.
All right, let's move on to the next speaker. The next speaker is Sean Hu. I have unmuted
David,
you. Yes.
David, please let Irvish finish his time.
Oh, my apologies. Irvish, if you could raise your hand again, we'll allow you to speak.
Yeah, I think we were down to about 1:30.
It was about 1:30. Yeah.
I yield my 1 minute. I'll take 30 seconds only. So basically, we can take a look at the AB 889, which is the modeling of the open space preservation for the Bushy Lake and the Urban American River Parkway, as how the Assembly Bill is introduced in order to preserve the open reserve parkway, and as well as establishing the urban area around the American River Parkway in the city of Sacramento. Also, the example is of a AB 1183 for the California Conservation Program, which is to preserve the wildlife, what rights for the benefit of wildlife within the specific marine area. So I just wanted to mention that this bill could provide the example and the modeling for that, how the urban development could be taken place. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. The next speaker is Sean Hu. I have unmuted you. You'll have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
Hi, folks. I'm a representative of Coyote Creek Golf Club, which is part of the Coyote Valley Monterey corridor that the city mayor has recently issued a memo on, considering alternative, development scenarios. We really applaud that approach. Because we as you guys might know, we are one of the larger employers in Coyote Creek and in Coyote Valley, and peak employment is about 100 people, and golf wasn't really a very profitable and sustainable business before COVID, and the pandemic kind of really awoke people's awareness that outdoor sports is really good. However, in order to sustain that business, we need to have options for future development. Golfers might want to come here and play, and we have weddings, and the wedding folks wanted the option to stay the night, and currently we don't have that, and we need that option. So I just wanted to raise awareness that business in the Coyote Valley like ours needs to have the option in the future to expand and develop alternative options to sustain the business going forward. Thank you.
Next speaker is Alice Kaufman. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, President Wasserman and Supervisors. Alice Kaufman, Legislative Advocacy Director for Green Foothills. I want to point out that the changes that are being proposed here are really very modest. The zoning and the general plan designation for Coyote Valley is already agricultural. That is not something that is being changed now. That designation and zoning is staying the same. The land in Coyote Valley is already very restricted in terms of what may be built. The staff recommendations merely propose development standards to prevent the potential for luxury estate homes that would be vastly outsized for this rural area and that could potentially take farmland out of production in order to create a private villa. The county general plan is very clear that it is the intent, purpose, and policy of the county to preserve agricultural resources and farmland. Not only are the staff recommendations entirely aligned with the general plan, any policy direction that would go in a different direction and act to discourage, much less abandon, agriculture in Santa Clara County would be completely in conflict with decades of county policy as embodied in the general plan. Moreover, the county just a few years ago approved the Ag Plan, which reinforces the agricultural preservation policies of the general plan and details various ways in which these policies should be supported. The proposed changes before you today merely implement and carry out the directives of these policy documents. Nothing in the proposed changes takes the county in a new direction or in any way deviates from what has been clearly laid out over decades of land use policy in the county. So please approve the staff recommendations for Coyote Valley. Thank you.
Next speaker is Kristen Leach. I have unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My name's Kristen, and I'm a diversified vegetable and horticultural seed producer, currently in Yolo County. And I'm just calling in to, really plead with you to support this initiative and to protect agriculture in Coyote Valley. Like, I think in terms of viability, just because of the diversity in Santa Clara County as a whole and its proximity to markets, there's a unique opportunity for like a really robust agricultural sector to develop in Coyote Valley, one that's really merged with conservation goals and climate resilience and all of these other things, that there's just this completely unique opportunity here in this flashpoint to really be at the leading edge in terms of what's necessary to kind of just build some sort of optimistic future for future generations. So I just really would highly encourage you to take this opportunity now and to just see, the vision that's laid forward and just the practical steps that need to get there. I just think that because of how many diverse communities reside in Santa Clara, I think especially for farmers that come from those communities, to be able to grow diversity of crops, to contribute to that biodiversity and the perpetuation of it. There's just really, Santa Clara is just so unique in that capacity. So thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Emily Schwing. I have unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Emily Schwing. I'm the Public Affairs Director for Vaccination and part of the Coyote Collective. One of the biggest challenges to agriculture in Santa Clara County is lack of access to land and difficulty in securing long-term leases. It is extremely difficult for beginning farmers to find land to farm, and this is especially challenging for immigrant farmers. Even those who have been farming for years are often on year-to-year leases, which do not give them security of land tenure that would allow them to make capital investments in the land to increase its productivity. We spoke with a few of our farmers this morning, actually, who are part of our food distribution project. We asked them kind of what are their barriers to being able to access land. And the first was from Pisca Farms. And she said it's very difficult for small farmers, most of whom are looking for 5 to 20 acres, which is very difficult to find. And then we also spoke to Catalan Farms, and she said majority of the small farmers are immigrants, and they come from working for agribusiness companies. They don't own agricultural land. They're always thinking when the owner is going to ask for the land, which is a very unstable way to be in the farming business. Our support of this item is in alignment with the County of Santa Clara Food System Work Plan, goal number 3, which is to maintain farmland, increase agricultural opportunities, enhance farm viability. By supporting this item, we'll be protecting the Coyote Valley working lands that are essential not only to the current agricultural economy, but also to preserve its resources and values. Thank you.
Mr. President, the last hand raised is Gloria Ballard's, but she's mentioned before that her hand wasn't raised. It leads me to believe there might be a software issue on her part, but that was the last of our public speakers.
Thank you very much, David. I appreciate that. With that, we will close the public hearing. And we've got 3 recommended adopts and a direct, but I want to go to supervisors first for comments, questions, a motion. Supervisor Lee, I see your hand raised. And then we'll hear from Jacqueline.
Can I just ask a process question, Supervisor President Wasserman?
I'm sorry, Supervisor Lee, you put your hand down. I'll go to Supervisor Chavez now.
Yeah, good. Go for Supervisor Chavez first. I'll speak after that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to ask a process question. Will staff be giving a presentation and responding to the public comment?
I was going to have Jacqueline do that. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, let's do that before. No other supervisor questions before that? Okay, Jacqueline, your turn.
Thank you, Supervisor. Jacqueline Anshano, Director of Planning and Development. With me today is Michael Meehan, Senior Planner, who will make the presentation. Before Michael begins the presentation, I do want to let the supervisors know we did meet on Kawahara Farms with Gloria Ballard, and in the presentation we will speak to addressing the issue that was raised. Please, Michael Meehan.
Thank you. Good morning, President Wasserman and members of the board. As introduced by Director Anshano, my name is Michael Meehan, Senior Planner with the department. Today I'll be sharing a presentation on the proposed Coyote Valley Climate Resilience Combining District. To start, a word on nomenclature. In the past, we've been referring to this project as an overlay zone, and the use of combining district doesn't present a meaningful difference here. This is simply the terminology already established in our zoning ordinance for what can otherwise be referred to as an overlay zone. Just to confirm, my slides are showing, yes?
Yes.
All right. So in summary of what's to follow, first I'll provide an overview of the project and the proposed amendments, followed by a summary of the action taken by the City of San Jose. Next, the possible funding and financial incentives proposed, then an overview of outreach efforts and public hearings, before lastly covering the recommended actions. First, the impetus for this project was a board referral in December of last year, requesting the administration to provide options relating to a climate change overlay zone, as well as a possible moratorium on development in Coyote Valley. The board voted to hold off on the moratorium and directed staff to prepare the overlay zone, which is what we will present to you today. A quick note that the board subsequently requested a status update on specific types of development activity within the proposed combining district. Although such activity has been limited in the past 10 months, staff has prepared an off-agenda memo, which the board will receive later this week. To reorient the board on this item, the county is proposing amendments related to unincorporated Coyote Valley because of its unique natural and agricultural landscape. The emphasis here is on ag, climate resilience, and natural infrastructure. Under the proposed amendments, new development would be limited by land development standards, namely the total development area and the total building footprint or lot coverage. And new funding and financial incentives could be made available to property owners within this combining district area. Staff's proposal is to take a two-tier approach with requirements that apply limitations to new development and incentives that provide new opportunities to invest in ag operations and the landscape's natural infrastructure value. Importantly, the proposal here would include amendments to 3 key planning documents that we use: the general plan, the zoning map, and the zoning ordinance. So getting into each of these a bit further, the proposed general plan amendments would acknowledge the changing land use policies of the City of San Jose toward Coyote Valley, which is intended to keep the incorporated areas in open space and agriculture instead of reserving it for campus industrial development. These amendments would recommend pursuing a regional approach in collaboration with the City of San Jose to both development regulations and voluntary preservation incentives, and make minor clarifying amendments to the county's general plan language that designates Coyote Valley as a valuable agricultural greenbelt area. Moving on to the zoning map, the proposed combining district would apply to all unincorporated parcels that are zoned exclusive agriculture currently and within the boundaries of AB 948. This is the state legislation designating Coyote Valley as a resource of statewide significance. This new district excludes any incorporated parcels under the City of San Jose or Morgan Hill jurisdiction, which is why the map here looks a bit fractured, especially down the middle along the Monterey Road, which is within the city of San Jose's jurisdiction. The zoning ordinance amendments being proposed would establish a maximum lot coverage of 7,500 square feet per parcel for non-agricultural structures, establish a maximum cumulative development area of 1 acre per parcel and 2 acres per parcel with on-site agriculture. In addressing the question of whether nurseries would be considered as agriculture, they would be considered agriculture for the purposes of this exemption. However, that's limited to 7,500 square feet. So for expansive greenhouse operations, clearly that might not be enough for them, which I understand is the issue. However, they would indeed be considered an agricultural use and therefore exempt from this first standard. It's the second standard, however, intended to protect the soil resource base, where only 2 acres with on-site agriculture would be the limitation. Now, we would define on-site agriculture in the ordinance amendments for these purposes to consist of no less than 6 acres or 60% of a parcel under cultivation, or no less than 24 acres dedicated to raising livestock. And the amendments would establish an additional requirement for new single-family home development on ag parcels over 5 acres to be permitted only as supportive, or rather ancillary to on-site agriculture. And I'd like to note here that because the on-site ag requirement is new to our ordinance, the department is developing administrative guidelines to assist applicants and staff with implementing this provision. Importantly, also is what's not included here, and that's any change to the current base zoning, which is currently exclusive ag and would remain as such. And this means that the density and the uses allowed currently would also remain unchanged. Getting into these proposed requirements a bit more, 2 aspects of the proposal have changed since the summary table was last presented to the board. First, after additional analysis and of the existing conditions and conversations with property owners in Coyote Valley, we determined that the lot coverage limitation should be reduced from 10,000 square feet to 7,500 square feet as long as agricultural buildings are exempt. We found that the median floor area on parcels in Coyote Valley is 2,424 square feet, and that the average is 4,216 square feet. These numbers, of course, include all agricultural buildings, which would be exempt under the proposal, and the square footage of second floors, which are excluded from calculating the lot coverage. Fewer than 10 parcels are estimated to exceed the proposed threshold of 7,500 square feet as currently built. These properties would be exempt from coming into compliance with the new regulations, but in most cases would not be able to expand further. This is what our code refers to as becoming legal non-conforming. However, it's important to note that the use would not be legal non-conforming because the allowed uses are not changed, only the extent of the development, similar to a house that's encroaching within its setback from pre-existing conditions. Additionally, in speaking with farmers in Coyote Valley, staff realized that the 1 acre limitation could end up becoming overly restrictive for a property with a significant operation as well as a residential area, which is why we chose to double the maximum development area for parcels with on-site ag, bringing it to a 2 acre cumulative area. In Coyote Valley, our best estimates indicate that parcels with existing development have an average area that's developed of 44,000 square feet, or just over 1 acre, and a median development area of 21,100 square feet, or just under half of an acre. These are estimates based on a representative sampling of 229 parcels within the valley, roughly half, including those with agricultural operations. So here's a diagram we've been using throughout project development and outreach to illustrate the development standards. Staff is no longer recommending any specific maximum on floor area, only lot coverage, which we've referred to in the past as well as total building footprint. This is how much ground all buildings cover. And with the development area maximums, we are looking at all structures and permanently impacted areas, including driveways and leach fields. During the development of these standards, it's been important to acknowledge that while most agricultural operations are soil dependent, meaning the cultivation of crops is taking place directly in the farmland soil, some are not, and in fact depend upon developing over the soil, as we've heard from some of our nurseries. This could be with either concrete, gravel, or structures. These ag uses not only include nurseries, but also include our mushroom farms, for example. Under the proposed amendments, such operations would be able to continue in Coyote Valley and make improvements or expansions within the limitations applied to all other ag operations. However, they would not be entirely exempt from these provisions. This is because once farmland soil has been developed, it is effectively lost in perpetuity. Although there is still, of course, dirt beneath the development that takes place, the soil, which is a living ecosystem, is being lost. Instead of purchasing a farmland parcel to develop such ag uses as nurseries and mushroom farms within Coyote Valley, which are dependent upon development to expand, would still be able to purchase and make use of properties in Coyote Valley that have already been developed. Our department anticipates working closely with such applicants to find workable solutions that are within the development standards being proposed today. Now, moving on to a brief discussion of the City of San Jose's recent actions. In October of last year, the city's general plan 4-year review task force voted to recommend approval of staff recommendations to redesignate Coyote Valley for ag uses and open space lands. In October of this year, the City Planning Commission voted to recommend denial of staff's proposal, citing concerns about the potential diminution of property value and skepticism around the future viability of agriculture. And just last month, the City Council voted to approve the staff recommendation, further directing staff to examine the Monterey corridor and specifically seeking to align the zoning on those parcels with the county's far more permissive agricultural zoning, which surrounds the Monterey corridor. This is intended to allow similar uses across the two jurisdictions, specifically ag supportive uses such as processing or sales or events or agricultural employee housing, all of which are currently allowed in the county's ag zoning. And I'll just note that staff, our county staff, is eager to continue supporting the city staff in this effort and participate in the study that has been directed by their council. We also wanted to point out some of the important distinctions between the county and the city's actions. Once again, the proposed amendments before you today would not change the base zoning of any parcels. They are all zoned exclusive agriculture today and would remain as such. Moreover, the amendments would result in no change to allowable densities, parcel size, nor the types of uses allowed. And as mentioned on the previous slide, the county's ag zoning today is far more permissive than the city's, allowing for the exact uses that the city wishes to accommodate along that Monterey corridor. This is why the city is aiming to emulate or mirror the uses allowed by county zoning. And as such, staff does not recommend carving out any additional exceptions or provisions specific to Monterey corridor, although we look forward to participating in the city's work, and we will do everything necessary to try and align our respective ordinances there. Lastly, the rural zoning update, which has been an ongoing and multifaceted effort to update our zoning ordinance for the 4 rural-based districts, is proposed to further streamline such agricultural supportive uses. And in fact, because of the proposed permit streamlining that could occur, we are currently in the midst of analysis for an EIR on this project and expect to bring those final amendments to the board in the second half of 2022. Now, moving on to the possible funding and financial incentives. Here we'll go over 4 possible incentives, each of which to varying degrees would require further program development should the county choose to pursue them. First, additional funding for direct and permanent preservation of land through agricultural conservation easements. Second, a revitalization of the open space easement program which emulates Williamson Act contracts with term limited restrictions on properties that are not specifically in commercial ag use. This would be in exchange for reductions on those property taxes. Third, a spinoff of the county's Agricultural Resilience Incentive, or ARI, grant program, targeting smaller scale resilience projects. These could range from riparian corridor restoration to flood managed aquifer recharge projects to bat boxes, raptor poles, and wildlife friendly fencing. And lastly, staff continues to work collaboratively with the San Jose City staff and subject matter experts to explore the possibility of an environmental credits program. This would offer saleable credits for the mitigation of future development impacts elsewhere based off of the natural characteristics and values to preservation projects in Coyote Valley. Together, these 4 programs make up staff's proposal for voluntary incentives within the new combining district. And if directed to do so today, staff would bring back an analysis of the feasibility costs and actions associated with developing each of these. As a brief bit of preview for one of these incentives that we're excited about, the purchase of development rights, staff's been using state grant funding to explore what's called the buy, protect, sell model of conservation, through which farmland is acquired fee title at appraised market value, protected with an easement, and then sold back to a new farmer at agricultural value. We're excited about this model because we think it can be a win-win-win-win, offering property owners the full value of their land, facilitating land access and ownership with farmers that have fewer resources, while affirmatively ensuring both continued farming and natural resource protection. And lastly, this model does not require public ownership or management, and the final cost is only the easement value. While there's a lot more work to be done in fleshing out this approach, it's one that we think could be particularly well suited to Coyote Valley. Quickly now, here I'll go over the outreach for this project. A paper mail notice was sent to all 474 property owners on record in Coyote Valley. The department noticed over 500 interested parties and 24 organizations by email, consisting primarily of farmers, ranchers, wineries, business and property owners in Coyote Valley, public agencies, and environmental nonprofits. Meeting notices were posted on the county website, Facebook account, through WeChat and the Nextdoor platform. 2 virtual meetings were held, one for the general public on July 26th and another specifically for the ag community on July 27th. Some in-person meetings were held by request, and many hours of conversation have been had over the phone and in one-on-one virtual meetings with property owners, environmental advocates, developers, and farmers in this area. And an in-person opportunity for Q&A at the county facility in San Martin was held with Chinese translation available, and handout materials were also translated and made available. As required by state law under AB 52, tribal consultation letters were sent to over a dozen tribes. However, no requests to consult were received. We do also have a project-specific website with relevant background materials, handouts, and recordings of our virtual meetings. And as a brief overview of the public hearings to date, this project began with a referral from the Board of Supervisors in December of last year. Staff first brought this item back to the board on February 9th. We subsequently returned to the board on June 8th and to the Hewlett Committee, specifically with a midstream analysis of our outreach, back to the Planning Commission with a study session in August 26th. We went before the Planning Commission in last month on November 18th, and the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of staff recommendations. And today we finally bring these recommendations to you. Now there are several recommendations here. Staff's recommendations are first to adopt a resolution amending the general plan as outlined here today, to adopt an ordinance adding chapter 395 3.95, that is, to the zoning ordinance, which would create the CV, Coyote Valley Climate Resilience Combining District, to adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning maps relating to the creation of this new district, and direct administration to report to the Board of Supervisors no later than April 2022, relating to the feasibility, costs, and actions associated with developing those financial incentives that I went over in the previous slide. And a quick note that a late revision was made to correct an error that was strictly graphical with the map used in 3 of the attachments for this item. A brief memo has been provided noting the change, and importantly, this correction does not alter the scope of the proposed amendments and does not change the parcels that are included in the proposed combining district. If the board takes action on this item, we request the board take action on these revised attachments, which I believe have already been added to the agenda. So this concludes staff's presentation. Thank you for your attention. Myself and other project personnel are available now for any clarifying questions or comments from the board. Thank you.
And I'd like to just clarify, this is Jacqueline Onshano.
Yeah.
When we met with Gloria Ballard with regard to Kawahara Nursery and some of the other nurseries as in the Coyote Valley, the mushroom farm and so forth, we talked about developing guidelines, development guidelines to further clarify and define agricultural uses and the allowances. So I didn't want Supervisor Chavez to think we had just passed over that statement that Kawahara Nurseries had made about them furthering and being able to expand. We think that we need to have a conversation with them because expansion does not mean you have to pave over the ag land, understanding that it is a living ecosystem, but there are other methods to allow them to expand. And we would like to write those exceptions in development guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jacqueline, when was this PowerPoint available?
I think, Michael, when was it uploaded last week?
Yes, I believe it was uploaded on Friday of last week.
Yeah.
On Friday. Okay, super. Thank you. I'll turn to Supervisor Chavez. Her hand is up first.
Thank you. So if we could go back, Jack, just to the last thing you said. So could you just talk through what are the alternatives that we would be thinking about? And let me just say, I do appreciate very much the concern from staff and advocates around not paving over good farmland. I'm also mindful that this is a big part of our cultural heritage, really is greenhouses. And so what is the alternative, and how, and then talk a little bit about what concretely, not to use that word, but what specifically would you like to be doing over the next month or so to address the concerns raised by Gloria and her
Sure.
and the growers out there?
Sure. We don't fully have specifics. I'll give you one example, if I may, through the President Wasserman, I'm sorry. And so first of all, we need to get an understanding of how much of their current approximately 90 acres is currently covered, already developed. When we looked at one of the maps, it looks like it's about 90% already with greenhouses and so forth. So we're trying to understand what their need is if moving forward. We do understand that there are opportunities to not have to pave over ag land. There's different systems that can be used in nurseries. There's great systems. There's what do you call it, Michael? The fabric covering. So
Landscape fabric.
Thank you. It escaped me. Landscape fabric that can be used that still allows water to permeate and allows the soil to breathe. So we want to work with them in these development guidelines. It doesn't have to just be paving, concrete. And so we want to look at these options with them. We also looked at writing in guidelines for soil dependent greenhouses, but we recognize that Kawahara Farms, they have a system that is much easier used with paving, based on the way that they have explained to staff how they operate. We want to be able to have a conversation with them on the guidelines. So we haven't nailed down all the alternatives, Supervisor, because we don't want it to be a dictation towards them. We want to have the exchange.
So Jack, just so I understand from a process perspective, I actually think this is a really important issue that I want to understand the resolution of. And I'll just say, you know, I think the referral that got us here was one I brought. So this is me saying, you know, I'm still really excited about the direction, but I really want to understand a timeline and a process for resolution and addressing this, because I don't want, you know, I want to just say, I know nurseries have been a really big part of our history and culture for a long time. I do know also, just to be direct, that we have new technologies that are emerging as well. And so I recognize that even our approach has to be more dynamic. But what I don't want is, I don't want to leave a major employer and, you know, someone who's actually doing what we want to have done out there, which is farming, right? To be left without a set of solutions. So could you talk specifically about the approach and specifically about the timeline and how their concerns could or should be addressed and when they would come back to the board?
So the specific approach we have discussed is development guidelines and exceptions for agricultural uses. We did not discuss a timeline of coming back to the board. The development guidelines, we could bring some type of draft to the board, maybe in the second quarter of 2022. So I can't nail down an exact time. We had stated that we would bring this back to the board, but we met with Gloria yesterday. And so it's not something we want to linger, because we know that it's very important for both the mushroom farm and Kawahara Nursery.
Okay, and then I'm going to come back to this issue in just a minute, but on the study, on the study of the Monterey corridor, I'm actually really excited that Michael, that your team and the City of San Jose's planning team, and Jack, your teams have just been working closely together. I think one of the biggest challenges for property owners out there is how Winchester Mystery House it is, because, you know, even looking at the map of the City of San Jose having the corridor and then the properties right behind it being in our jurisdiction, I just can't imagine how both challenging and annoying that is to the property owners. What I'm wondering is, could you just talk a little bit about the role we would have in that joint study, and what, if anything, we would be bringing back potentially to our board?
Michael, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, through the president, if I may. My understanding from working closely with the city staff, and my understanding as well of the direction from their mayor and city council, is to really bring their code in alignment with the county's far more permissive code for exclusive ag zoning. And so specifically what the city is looking at is how to allow and streamline the ag supportive uses that I mentioned earlier. So ag employee housing, the ability to process agricultural products, the ability to sell products, to host events. And so this is something that the county is already pretty progressive about, and that we're looking to additionally streamline, as I mentioned in our rural zoning update. And so our hope is that the ultimate outcome is an aligned zoning ordinance, both within the county and the city, so that a property owner along the Monterey corridor while certainly they would need to apply for permits in different places, would have roughly the same uses and extent of development allowed along that corridor. And so while in our conversations thus far, the focus has been how to bring the city up to speed, certainly through our participation in that study, if there are other uses that the city is excited about facilitating in that area, the county would gladly evaluate those as well and bring them before our planning commission and board for consideration. However, to date, there hasn't been a specific use that's not allowed in county zoning, and that the core function of that study is to explore a path forward for the city to align with the county, which is why we don't recommend duplicating the study or expanding it in any way, but rather participating closely and advising their staff.
So Michael, and Jack, one of the requests I'd like to make when a motion's finally made on this is that the joint study, irrespective of the outcome, that actually does get presented to the planning commission from, even the city of San Jose, is because one of the things I think we have to do a better job is really communicating between entities. And so I think an update on the study and the alignment of that study, if there are changes, I recognize that would have a formal process on our part. But the reason I want a commitment on that is that if there are changes, again, what I don't want to do is have the property owners waiting an extended period of time for us to study, then come back. Like, if I want this to be done concurrently.
Yeah.
So that similar to the way this came to us, which is if the city of San Jose is going to go first, that we have something coming back to our, at least to the commission, potentially to the board, to update on where you are in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And what the outcomes of the study are. And then, just to go back to this greenhouse issue, one of the concerns I have is that we had people with concerns calling in today, even after you talked to them about how we're going to proceed. And I still don't know quarter one, quarter two. I would like something more refined in terms of how we're going to proceed in terms of the conversation. In part, again, because, if this was somebody with a non-ag use, I wouldn't feel as urgent as I feel, but because it's an agricultural use, I am very concerned about not having a plan of action in terms of responsiveness with a timeline to it. So I'll let my colleagues ask their questions. And I'll think a little bit about how to address that. But I just wanted to share with you what my thinking is. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Lee.
Thank you, President Wasserman. So along that last question regarding the Monterey Road study, the current proposal is not to provide any carve out on the issue of Monterey Road. But again, we certainly would like to work with City of San Jose to make sure that when the study comes back that we're going to address those issues. Is it possible for us to approve the proposal as is right now and then leave that issue alone so that when it comes back to us down the road after the study, by San Jose, we could then address those issues later?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Second question I have is regarding the definition of the lot coverage maximum of 7,500 square feet. So you decided not to do the floor area ratio, FAR. So by 7,500 lot coverage, meaning that any structure that will be built will be no greater than 7,500 square feet. Is that what my understanding?
Go ahead, Michael, would you explain that again?
Sure,
Michael?
through the chair, if I may. I mean, the president is, the lot coverage is effectively the horizontal area of 1 story. So floor area is 2 stories cumulative. The lot coverage, as we've defined it in our zoning ordinance for a long time, is just the total building footprint. And so if the structure is non-agricultural, if it's a single family home or a workshop unrelated to ag uses, then the total lot coverage would be limited to 7,500 square feet. As I noted, our averages are far below that. I believe the median was 2,200 and the average was 4,000 or vice versa. And that's including ag structures. So I think that's the really key part here in how we revised our approach, is that while agriculture would continue to be subject to the total development area, the lot coverage would be not, any agricultural structures would not count towards their cumulative total.
Excuse
But
me.
if I can,
Excuse me just one second. Michael, just for clarification, leach fields and driveways and everything else aside, if a person built a 7,500 square foot footprint and had it 2 stories, he could have 15,000 square feet of square footage.
Yep.
It's just the amount of ground you cover. So this actually allows more than before.
That's fair.
yes.
Thank you.
But Michael, can you clarify through the president, please? Michael, if you would clarify though, on development area, the 2 acres for the ag, we're looking at approximately 87,000 square feet for ag that can cover a site, or what we call development area of disturbance.
That's correct. And our understanding is that that's more than generous for the vast majority of agricultural operations, and that as noted, there's 10 or fewer parcels that would exceed this threshold, and that includes the nursery and mushroom farm that we've been discussing. That is more than enough area for a farm that's dependent on soil for cultivation. However, as I noted, certain uses depend on developing the soil for their agricultural operation. And so that's really the quandary of squaring the needs of ag operations that depend upon paving over farmland soil, and a measure, a referral and district which has the intent of preserving that soil. Climate resilience and resource protection is on one end of a Venn diagram. On the other end is agricultural use, and in the middle there's some overlap, but there's also some conflict. And I think when it comes to the case of the nurseries that depend upon paving the soil, that's the inherent challenge that we faced here. And I'll just add again that the total development area, as long as it's not increased, it can be modified. So a nursery seeking to expand their operations could purchase another parcel that already has been developed in one way or another and modify it to their liking. These restrictions would only limit the ability of a new farmland parcel being purchased and more than 2 acres of it being paved.
Right. So follow up on that, thank you, President Wasserman, for explaining that. I think that clarified actually my question. So that, well, not that people build 4 or 5 stories, but I mean, certainly if they do 3 stories, they could be 7,500 times 3, 4 story would be 7,504. There's no height limitations on this land, is there?
So through the president, there is a height limitation in all of our zoning districts. I believe in the exclusive ag zone, it would be 35 feet. So it would be likely limited to 2 stories.
Yeah, 2 stories. Or well, I guess 3 if you want to really squeeze it, right? But okay, yeah, all right. But 7,500 square foot per level, basically. Okay. There's other questions regarding this SB9, right? So my very limited understanding of SB9 is that basically by right allows owners to add a second unit onto the same piece of land. How does that affect us here on these lots we're talking about?
So I'll speak to that. Jacqueline Anshano, Director of Planning Development. We are still analyzing the properties that would be subject to SB9. Our initial review, Supervisor Lee, is that in our ag zones, SB9 would not be applicable. However, we are still analyzing that information. And so, but right now, our exclusive ag zones, SB9 would not be applicable from our cursory review.
Okay, all right, thank you. And that's all the questions I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, and we'll come back to Supervisor Chavez. And I don't see a hand raised by Supervisor Simidian. So I'll just, Michael, thank you for your presentation. Jacqueline, Lisa, nice to see you. For me, whether you're growing mushrooms or plants, you're agriculture. And I appreciate the conundrum, Michael, that you described about the nursery, for instance, having the asphalt or concrete grounds for their system of grates and the way that they produce plants. But that nursery we're talking about produces a couple of million plants, and they do it in a density that is incredible. And I understand the concrete over the ground and the nutrients in the sun and rendering it perhaps useless after X number of years. But my personal position as one supervisor is that an existing nursery greenhouse that grows millions of plants, and I've been there, I've had a tour, I've seen them grow from little bitty seedlings in a plastic tray that holds 150 little bitty seedlings to the poinsettias that you see in Home Depot and Orchard Supply and everywhere else. And it's a pre-existing business that supplies. One of your slides, Michael, you talked about supplying the market. And this agricultural use definitely supplies a market, definitely provides jobs, and it's growing plants. So for me to ultimately approve this thing, I need something in there that says that we need to find a way to make a place that employs 400 people that's been in existence for 75 years and grows plants to be an accepted type use.
If I may, President Wasserman,
yes,
this change does not change their operation currently. They can still operate. And so what we're asking the board to do does not change the operation of Kawahara Nursery. It doesn't impact them. They do not have to close. They do not have to change their business practices. And so I just want to make sure everybody hears that. That's not the change that we're asking the board to consider today.
Thank you. I'm talking about expansion of any type business that I believe we would all consider to be agriculture, agricultural. I want to find a way to promote the expansion of agriculture, especially in South. I mean, anyway, we're talking about Coyote Valley. Anywhere, I want to help promote the expansion of agriculture in Santa Clara County. And I don't want, if they desire or some other outfit that grows plants or vegetables in a different way, to be prohibited by something we're passing with the intent to promote agriculture.
Yes.
So, and when I look at just dirt sitting there for decades, or a place that produces millions of plants and grows them and then does it again, I would rather see an ongoing business that employs people, produces taxes, produces a product the market wants, than just dirt laying fallow.
Okay.
That's just my perspective. Supervisor Chavez, back to you.
So what I'd like to do, I also just want to say Jack and Michael and Lisa and the whole staff who worked on this, I just want to say a very sincere universal thank you from the board. This, frankly, I know when we met last year, I was thinking, oh, this could take 3 months. And the truth is that all of this is always more complicated, and you did so much outreach and you talked to so many people that I think you have a product here that that we can feel very, very proud of. What I want to do is I want to move the staff's recommendations, but I'm going to start with the 2 exceptions or 2 additions, and then make sure that this is doable with the staff. One is I want to reinforce that we are supporting the City of San Jose's study, that we are jointly studying our own properties, the properties that are within our purview, so that if there are any like changes that the staff would like to make, they can be made concurrently with the city or brought to the board, to the Planning Commission and to the Board of Supervisors concurrently with the City of San Jose. So it's easier on the property owners not to be confused about what they can do in one place or another. And if there is a discrepancy between the 2, that also is highlighted through the Planning Commission and through the Hewlett Committee. that if there's something that's a discrepancy that staff isn't recommending a change, that it go to Hewlett and the Planning Commission. Second, as it relates to the greenhouses, that the staff report back to Hewlett in March about the work being done with the property owners that looks at all the options that you've raised today, including screening and other issues that we may want to think about as we move forward, and that that we have a recommendation come to the board no later than the second quarter of next year. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And Supervisor Wasserman, is that comfortable to you?
That sounds comfortable to me. I would like to hear what Jacqueline has in any response to anything you said.
Perfect. I'll stop and see what you think about those two additions.
I think we can do that. Come back to the board the second quarter and go to Hewlett by March. I think we can do that with development guidelines relative to ag exceptions. I'm just asking for a clarification.
And yes, with ag exemptions specifically relative to greenhouses, but there may be others that you all want to clean up. So I want to give you the flexibility to do that as well.
Okay, thank you. That is acceptable if we can do that.
And I'll second it.
Thank you, Supervisor Lee, for your second. I'd like to ask a question, if I may, Supervisor Chavez. Thank you. Jacqueline, I understand this effort. I saw the voting by San Jose, et cetera, and I certainly respect the largest city in our county, but I don't want our efforts to be bound or limited by San Jose's. I do appreciate what Supervisor Chavez said. We want to have some sort of uniformity so that it's logical and understandable by the property owners. And I don't want to have a mishmash of parcels interlocked, different uses, so that it doesn't look like it's been planned. You know, you're the director of the planning department, building, et cetera, but I always think of planning, okay? And I just want to make sure when this is all done and things are planned, that people driving through there look at that and say, well, this area was well planned. And that's, I just want to echo what Supervisor Chavez said about not being confusing to the agricultural, to the commercial, to the residential, all these different things together. Some places were side by side, some places were like this. I know that's an absolute headache, Michael, but at the end of the day, I want the county to keep going forward and not be limited by any vote from San Jose if we may disagree or agree. Is that understandable, Supervisor Chavez?
I totally agree. This is up to we're responding to the, what's that?
I'm saying we are our own entity.
Absolutely. I think the only point that I think you're right. I think the only point I wanted to reinforce is that I know our staffs have been working closely together, and I want to support that effort, but we will rely on our expert staff and on the public to give us feedback about right or wrong direction. And the only issue, Supervisor Wasserman, that I was trying to address is making sure that any actions happen concurrently, because I also want to make sure we really are being mindful of the folks who are working in that in frankly in Coyote Valley, and making sure that we're not adding more confusion. But you're right, we may have disagreements, and we're going to rely on our very professional staff to let us know.
In our planning department, planning commission, our planning commission, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Supervisor Lee, was that okay with you as the seconder?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Do we have any further discussion? And Dave, just for the record, I did close the public hearing, correct?
You did, sir.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, Supervisor Chavez?
Mike, I didn't move the rest of the staff's recommendations, so I'm going to move the staff's recommended actions with the addition of the resolution of the issues relative to the greenhouses or other likely situated facilities, and that to reinforce the joint study with the parameters that you and I just discussed.
Thank you. Supervisor Smitty.
Thank you. I am just curious where this leaves us on the sort of ongoing concern that I think we all share about viability of agriculture in this area in the Coyote Valley. There's a concern expressed about the viability of ag in the area that's affected by this action. Ms. Anshano, do you have any embedded in the staff recommendation? Is there any commitment to further assessing both the viability of agriculture in this area and also steps the county might take to enhance the viability of agriculture in the area?
Yes, we do have embedded in the presentation steps to enhance the viability of the agriculture. It was the several last slides of funding and incentives that we are working on. And Michael, if you want to bring those back up, where we do have that embedded in the staff report, Supervisor Smitty. Through President Wasserman, sorry.
Thank you, excuse me, through the chair. The question I'm asking goes to not whether that issue has been raised to date, but whether or not it will be a source of continued study and perhaps action if need be 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road. And to the maker and the seconder, if it's as simple as asking for a friendly amendment that says report back on viability in this area 2 years from now, with a report as well on steps, if any, that would be necessary to enhance the viability, just to make sure that we don't have the conversation today and have those issues fall by the wayside.
Is that fine? Supervisor Chavez?
Well, I was going to say, I think Supervisor Smitty, and you raise an excellent point. And what I would recommend is around the 6 month time that the not to exceed 6 month time that we do a check-in on that exact issue, because I think one of the points that Michael and Jack have raised is that there's some changes happening in the state as well that I think we're going to want to take a look at, and frankly, even our own practices relative to financing. So I think having that come back in about 6 months makes a lot of sense, Supervisor.
Supervisor Chavez, through the chair, would you be amenable to both a 6 month and a 2 year report back if that works for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, because I think there's some effort that'll have to be made over the longer term. So I'll stop there and take yes for an answer, Supervisor Wasserman, and say thank you to my colleague. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm in favor of anything coming back in 2 years, just for the record. Okay.
Through the president, just for a matter of clarification to the motion maker, we just want to make sure that the motion includes the revised ordinance and map that was uploaded to the website.
Yeah, it did.
Yes.
Supervisor Lee?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And before we take, Supervisor Smitty, do you have another question?
I do not. I will lower my hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Lee?
Yes, I just want to make a final comment. First of all, I want to thank staff for all the good work you have done working with the small farmers, landowners, and other stakeholders to propose this balanced approach to protect agricultural land and preserve the open spaces. You know, Coyote Valley is really a unique area that sits in the nexus of climate and agriculture. We don't often see these types of opportunities to protect areas like this for future generations. This valley includes many natural and unique characteristics that helps us address climate change, including carbon sequestration via perennial vegetation, prime farmland soils and food security, groundwater level and aquifer health, flood attenuation and recharge, and wildlife habitat and landscape linkages. By keeping this land in the semi-natural state, we also prevent and decrease the production of greenhouse gas by not increasing the number of individuals who commute to work by longer distance by automobile. We also help to decrease the shipping distances that trucks may travel to deliver food to our communities. These actions, in combination with the increased carbon capture and sequestration of the land in this area, will help us be a more resilient community in the future and help to decrease our direct impact on the climate. That being said, I want to thank Supervisor Chavez attention to the issue stated earlier, including those areas right by Monterey road where the city of San Jose is currently doing the study. And we certainly want to work closely to make sure those issues do get addressed when the study gets to come back to us. And thank you very much. And certainly urge my colleague to support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Eminem, I'm going to give you a shout out on the page numbers. Good job. All right, with that, Dave, if you'll please have a roll call vote.
Supervisor Lee,
Aye.
Supervisor Chavez,
Yes.
Supervisor Simidian,
Aye.
Vice President Ellenberg,
Yes.
President Wasserman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Board members, I'm now going to call for a lunch break. I gave the clerk a little advance notification. We are going to break from 12:15 to 12:45. We are going to come back on item number 11. Do you concur, David?
I do, yes.
Thank you very much. See you all in 30.
Recording stopped.